So it's clear to me that the marketplace of musical ideas is somewhat saturated. Whether we're talking about
Somewhat.
royalty-free music libraries, TV and production libraries, Spotify, game music marketplaces, SongTrader, or basically anywhere else where you can, potentially make a buck or even make some pennies by uploading and digitally distributing your music. So why is that? Well, because we're all essentially chasing the dream, getting our music out there and getting paid for it. And in this digital age where producing music is really easy and there's a lot of people fighting for the same piece of the pie, it really forces us to consider how to set ourselves apart from the majority. And we've got a few thoughts to share with you guys on that subject in today's episode. So welcome to the Make Music Income podcast. This is episode number 61, I believe. I always lose track.
Indeed.
My name is Stevie B. I'm with Eric Copeland here. And buddy, what's going on? How's your week been?
Well, it's getting crazy here. My schedule is about to change, but it's been a great week so far. I'm getting things done. I had another really interesting mastermind meeting today. We're in the final weeks of both masterminds that we've been running here, and they've been great. And we've learned. We're all learning a lot of things, and me as well. I learned things from them as well. We've been talking about collaboration today and different things. I got another song accepted at Motion Array, and I have, trying to get my titles here. I've got another song at Motion Array, but Motion Array has been dreadful. I don't know how it is for you, but for everybody, I'm hearing it's very, very slow. But it's dog days of the year, and we're all seeing slowness at Pond 5, Audio Jungle, all of these. These are not the money-making giants for us right now, but that's okay. Because I really feel like if you're watching or listening to this and you've got your music in Spotify or nowhere, that putting in Motion Array and Pond 5 is still better than nothing. If you don't have it anywhere and you can get accepted there and you can get your music there, what's it going to hurt? Yeah, okay, maybe you're not making a lot of dollars off of it right now. Mm-hmm. Things could change at any time and your music could get used, so why not? I think we get spoiled when we make a lot of money on something, or we make a certain amount of money, and then suddenly we don't make that money anymore. We think, what's happening? No one likes my music anymore. And It could just be the time of year or whatever. So that's happening. Let's see what else is going on. I am really this week I've been just trying to keep up with everything, and I got a class about to end at school here in a few days, and then I become somewhat of a free agent for a while. And I've been doing. I've really been behind on everything. It seems like my channel. I have videos all shot and not edited just because there's been no time to edit, and that's the probably. If you're wondering where Steve and I are sometimes when you look at our channels, like why haven't they put new content out? Dudes, unless you want live content, it takes a while to put these things together and edit them.
It's brutal.
And sometimes you just get stacked up with stuff that you've recorded, but then life happens, family happens, gigs happen, all this stuff happens, and the time to edit is just not there. And so, and sometimes you just got to edit it just right to put it out so that you can easily eat and accept all the stuff that we give you in tasty morsels. So I've been trying to get to those, but because I've been serving so many clients and doing so many things, a lot of consulting this week, and that takes you easily can sit for an hour talking to somebody, and some days I've had 2 in a row, and then my thing. So it just not any time to really get to anything, but still things are percolating. So how about you?
I hear you, man. My week's been good. Good news, Cubase is happy.
Yay!
I was really worried. They've just been so busy with some other projects that they're releasing, and so anyway, the marketing director got back to me. For those of you who are wondering what I'm talking about, I made some content for Cubase, and it took up a lot of my time, and it was a difficult thing to do. But they are very, very happy with what I sent them, and it's going to be going live on their channel at some point. I'm not exactly sure, but it's great. It's a great opportunity for me because, they want to continue working with me. And I never thought that would be kind of like a source of income for me, creating content for someone else. That's totally something that's random. And I'm excited to pursue it. So that happens. Massive reorganization, man, across the board on all platforms here. My wife is helping me with it. I'm trying to get my Google Drive sorted out. The content in the Academy has to get backed up. I'm trying to stick to a better schedule with YouTube and everything. Everything is just such a mess in terms of just organization. It really is my weakest point over here. So that's what I'm trying to improve. You look flustered there.
No, I just totally agree with you. I've literally had problems with my Zooms and stuff saving because I have so little hard drive space. I've got to get in and do backups. If I don't do backups, then everything is going to come to a complete halt.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It's the same thing you're talking about, getting your Google Drive straightened out. If I even think about my Dropbox, it's a mess. I've got to.
You don't even know.
Again, this is a behind the scenes a little bit here on what Steve and I deal with on a daily basis to try to keep all these things going. We were like juggling when we were going to even shoot this podcast just because of our schedules and sickness and different things happening, personal things. So
totally. Sometimes I speak about organization like I really have my stuff together, and maybe relatively I to some others out there I do, but the truth is that I feel hypocritical talking about organization.
You think we've got it all together over here.
Yeah, no, we really don't. Nothing
flying
much
by the seat of our pants.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's the way it goes. Doing some private live composing for the Academy coming up soon. I'm excited for that. And other than that, the show that we did as a band, my band played a show last Friday. It was a huge success. Great time, and it really got me kind of excited to get to playing more live. Hopefully I get to do that more throughout the summer. We're kind of organizing some festival dates that are in the works right now, and I'm ready to get back in the saddle of just getting out there and playing live. It felt good to do it, and that's about it for me, man. Great week.
Awesome.
So let's dig into it today. What do we got?
So how do we stand out and get noticed?
Yeah, this is a tough one.
This is a tough one because I was just talking about this very thing, and people are talking about, okay, I'm going to put stuff on Spotify. How do I get it noticed? How do I, as a person, get noticed? How do I get my songs on Motion Array to get noticed? How do I get my music to a filmmaker or to a library or all that kind of stuff? But what we want to talk today is more about practical things that you can just do all the time to improve yourself. Not necessarily how do I get into a library? How do I get this happen? But all of these things that can help us kind of stand out from the rest of the millions of people doing this, mostly because of Steve and I telling everybody they can do all this. So you're welcome, and we're sorry.
Yeah. We, it's even the truth is that even if you're writing great stuff and your mixes are high quality and you're checking off a lot of the boxes, even then it's hard to stand out. It's the truth is that it's you really got to think outside the box, but like you said, try to implement some of the things that we're talking about here, because I think eventually someone's is gonna take notice if you are really producing some great stuff and you are checking off those boxes. It's just a matter of time before you're able to find an opportunity. I think that's fair to say. I mean, it is a matter of time and persistence. But I think that the truth is that it's no easy task to stand out in a crowd of like you said, millions of other people writing music, and how much content goes live on Spotify every day. It's insane. It's insane how many people there are in this world doing it. So it's tough, even if you're producing amazing material.
I like this first topic you came up with here because I feel like this pretty much encapsulates my life as a composer and a creative.
Same
the
here
whole
in
time.
a way.
It's just reckless experimentation. Tell me what you thought about that, what you meant about that.
Well, this is my theory is like, I mean, at least for me, I think some of my best performing tracks were born from just the spirit of experimentation. And I really think that there's an advantage to just starting out, like when no one knows who you are, and especially with like, let's say like stock music or like royalty free sites, like Motion Array, for example, or Pond 5, where no one really knows who the author is. It's like you're somewhat kind of anonymous behind what you're sending them. You can afford to be really silly and experiment and do things when no one knows who you are. There's really no downside to it. Once you have a lot of eyeballs on you, once people kind of know what you're all about and recognize you, once you become like, more of a public figure to some extent, there's a lot more pressure that comes with that. And there's, so I think that when you're starting out anyway, it's like, who cares? Like, just do throw everything, be reckless, be silly, and try new things. And it's not like you're gonna get punished for it, or it's not like anyone's gonna judge you really for it. You know what I mean? So I think that there's this beautiful little period, when you're starting out, where you can kind of get away with whatever. And I think that you should embrace that.
This is not, also I will say, this is not advice that you hear all the time. A lot of people say, study the markets, do what is making money.
Well, we're
working for everybody.
We're going to cover that too, to some extent, okay. Right? You know what I mean? But like, yeah. I'm not like there's value in those tidbits of advice as well. I'm just, yeah. I mean, I don't know.
For instance, right now, a lot. As a matter of fact, my whole catalog is a study in experimentation. But right now I'm in a place where I'm wanting to write some new compositions on the piano, but I just keep putting my hands in the same place. So what I've been doing recently is what I call, well, you could call it reckless experimentation. I call it piano explorations, because I've just been just trying to find new places, new. Right. Star Trek, basically, seek out new life and new civilization, seek out new chords and new melodies and new ways to conjugate chords together and put things together in a way that I haven't before. And in order to do that, I've got to just kind of forget what everybody else is doing and forget what I've done, and just really experiment and really just explore. And I think sometimes we don't do that because we're trying to create corporate music, or we're trying to create music that'd be, dramedy because somebody else is creating it, or we're told that we have to do it for a certain brief. And briefs have their place for sure, but so does, trying to experiment. And I'll throw this into the mix. I don't know if I put this in here or you put this in here, but is originality and really trying to be original. And a lot of this being original comes from this exploration of yourself and your and because we're going to talk about, like you said, all the things that you could do to try to be like what's happening out there. But at the same time, there's got to be this original thing that you do that people are like, oh, I really like this composer because they do this.
Yeah, I mean, I really think it's a matter of like studying the marketplace, see, and we'll cover that in a different point. Sort of paying attention to the trends, but like always asking yourself, like, what is it that people aren't doing? I'm always kind of reassessing that. I'm thinking about our buddy Alex B here, because he's a real exception to doing poorly on Motion Array in the last couple months. He killed it on Motion Array in January, and one of his tracks has like a bass solo in it. Wow. And like if he had sent that to me for like feedback, I would have been like, dude, kill the solo. Like that's just, it's kind of not kosher for like licensing music to kind of like have that sort of, I don't know. I mean, it's just solos, guitar solos, bass solos. It's just not something you hear very often. So I would have been like, well, that's pretty unconventional. But he was kind of just like, who cares, man? Like just, he just put it up there. He's just like, whatever. And it did so well. Like he made thousands of dollars, and it was like the #1 track of the month. And I was like, man, well, there you go,
That was
man.
so
Like,
great
you know,
for him.
You know,
after such trial and error to try to get into that library, to now be making thousands. I mean, this is just another. We talk a lot about how hard it can be on stock, but then there are times like you've had and I've had that stock pays off in a nice way, you know, for you per month. The #1 download, I just was looking at today because I was talking to somebody else about Motion Array. Mm-hmm. My #1 download that has, I don't know how many it has, but it's a song from my album that is a vocal song that also has a bass solo in it. And it's like this dun 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 dun. It's this really good, like English drinking song or something like that. I mean, it's laid back. It's called "The Moon Over the Ocean," but it's the #1 downloaded thing I have off there.
There you go, folks. Bass solos. That's the key.
Bass solos rock. They rock.
Yeah, well, I think it's just like a fearlessness to just be like, hey, you know what? If it works, it works. Like sometimes we're told to do a lot of X, Y, and Z a lot. We're told like, don't do this, don't do that. There's like these unspoken rules, and sometimes those rules are meant to be broken, and like sometimes that's how you stand out in a crowd. So you know, it won't always work. It won't always sound good, but sometimes it works for whatever reason. It just magically works. It's important to sort of just to I don't know, be a little reckless with it sometimes, I guess.
The next one you have here is tying up loose ends. What did you mean by this?
Yeah, so I think, and this is just kind of a quick one. There's not really much to say here other than I think that you have to sort of think about your entire ecosystem online, like the way you're representing yourself. And I think that everywhere that you're putting yourself out there, like on all different platforms, you really got to kind of represent yourself in a similar way. And I think that like your website, social media presence, Spotify, SoundCloud, like wherever people are going to be able to search you, or wherever, you know, you're using to kind of represent yourself, like it should all be up to date and it should all look like good. And because people will look if they're considering hiring you for a job. It's one thing that I've really, you know, learned is that people, you know, they will check you out. And you may have you may have great music, but those tiny details can be the deciding factor in the end if someone wants to work with you. And so in light of that, I really think that it's important not to let anything kind of like fall behind. Like you shouldn't have stuff that's out of date on one platform, or not sounding great. You should be thinking about your entire ecosystem and how you want to like represent your brand.
Of course, this is something we could go do a whole episode on, as far as make sure your Spotify is up to date. If you're wanting to be on Artlist and you want them to go be able to search it out and find you, the first thing they're going to do is check out your Spotify and see if you've got a strong Spotify following and you've got your stuff up there. Or if an artist contacts me and they want to know, what do I need to do to become better at what I'm doing? And I'm like, how's your Spotify? Well, I haven't really put anything up there in a while. Mm-hmm. Or how's your website doing? Well, it's kind of old. My pages are, you know, I need to update the bio, or I've got a new email. I make music for Beats 62 is not, you know, quite the email I use anymore.
Yeah, this is what I'm talking
about.
What
is your email? Yeah, all this stuff that you have strewn across the internet every which way. Yeah. Just like Steve and I have files strewn across our computers that we're trying to clean up. You got to clean up all that stuff so that when people go look at you as a composer or as an artist or whatever you are, they see an organized person. And I know you're saying, oh, there's no time to do all that because I have to do all this stuff to get seen and heard. Well, part of being seen and heard, the way you want to be seen and heard, is being organized and having all the things. And listen, I have to continually update my brands too, and I probably could go in and update them right now. It just takes something that you can continue to do. If you got nothing else, you don't know where else to turn. That's kind of what we're talking about today. If you're trying to figure out, why am I not getting noticed? Why am I not standing out? These are things that you can kind of do.
Yeah. So. Yeah. It's fairly easy too, you know, just do some house cleaning. I'm doing some house cleaning today. So literally and figuratively.
So let's get to quality and quantity. This is you have quality versus quantity, or as I like to say, quality and quantity.
Yeah, this is like something we've touched on many times, and it is one of those things. It's like versus or and. Yeah, like, I just think that the days of like cranking out like subpar tracks like you're a factory, they're over. They're done.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't think that that's a viable option for success anymore. I think that every track requires an exceptional amount of like overtime, and like you really got to fine tune things. And I think that is the way forward in the music industry as a whole, not just licensing. You really got to go over everything with a fine tooth comb and make it exceptional. If you didn't, it's going to sound like it. And I don't know. I mean, there is sort of like this old school approach to, especially with like stock, stuff where like, it's just like, okay, just crank out a tune. And it's just, let's get my Pond 5 catalog up to like 500 plus tracks and everything. I'm just like, I don't know, man. I don't think it's going to cut it anymore. I really don't.
Yeah, and I've always been a big believer in quality. Part of what has made me successful is hiring great people. We'll talk about that in a minute. But the quality, now I believe in both because I really push to have a large catalog, and I really push my writing every month, every year. I try to increase the amount that I'm writing. But at the same time, if I'm not increasing the quality of what I'm keeping the quality high, then eventually people are going to quit paying attention, or they're just going to, it'll stay the same. You've got to have high quality, and that comes from not just having good samples, but having good quality control, making sure that your mixes are good and not just cranking stuff out. And we tend to do that, especially in the stock world where we're just cranking it out. We're not taking a listen on different speakers and things like that. We're just cranking out, and we're all guilty of this. There's none of us that
for sure
are perfect at this.
Yeah.
But you've got to have quality stuff. You've got to be original, but you've also got to have quality. You've got to be doing what's out there. We'll talk about that. But I think that quality is that one thing that most people don't, and it's hard to know if you're doing quality stuff. That's why it's valuable to do stuff like the feedback section in our Discord.
100%, yeah.
The free times when Steve or I are doing things that you can send in and get some comments on your stuff.
Yeah.
Just so that you're not sitting in your own little world thinking everything is fine and thinking everything's great when really you've got just a terrible problem with your bass, or you've got a terrible problem with the high end of your stuff. And
it's not always the mix really that I'm even referring to. It's the quality of ideas, because I mean, sometimes like great ideas can speak through a mix that's like kind of like not the best. Definitely heard that on Motion Array, like I've heard some songs that just kill it and they're not mixed like, like amazingly, but some of the ideas are just fantastic. And I think that speaks to quality on some level. It's just like the amount of time that you put in to fine tune the ideas and the arrangement and like the flow of it, because I mean I've definitely put out some mixes in the past that were like meh, not the best, but like they did perform well. So I think anyway, that's just something to think about.
Absolutely. This is something that my whole mastermind was about today, and that is collaboration.
Yeah.
And you and I are trying a collaboration, and hopefully the first of some collaborations that we can do. And everybody should be thinking about reaching out to others and doing some collaboration, because we all tend to be here in our little holes, making the little thing that we make in our little studios here. And really, we need to have some other people that kind of speak in to what we're doing, and it just adds a measure of dimensionality. We've talked about this a lot, but I think it's important.
Oh man, I mean, in so many facets of life, like collaboration is just so key. Not only in just music, I mean, I'm just like still buzzing off the collaboration with 6 other people, from last Friday's show with my band. And I mean, that's just like a massive collaboration, and it's amazing what happens when you you put some effort in together with a group of people. And I mean, it's like, look, this podcast is collaboration. We're working together to make this happen. I'd have a hell of a time doing it alone. And besides, it's more fun to do it with someone else anyway. You know what I mean? So
one of the takeaways I had from the Oscars was the guys who won they call themselves the Daniels. These 2 guys named Daniel who did the big movie that won everything, everything everywhere all at once, that won 7 Oscars. And he said this quote, and it just really spoke to me. He said, "The world is opening up to the fact that genius does not stem from individuals like us on stage, but rather genius emerges from the collective." And I think that is something that we don't think all the time about, that we could really collaborate. And by that collaboration, I have a whole group called Player A that I start all the tunes on keyboards, and then I send it to a drummer, and then I send that to a bass player, and then I send that to a guitar player, and then sometimes a programmer. And all of these parts, I don't tell them what to play. They put their own collaboration in, their own part in from their own brain, and it just makes something that I never could have thought of before.
Totally. That's how I work with my band as well. I don't write their parts for them. I let them write it, and it's a lot cooler than whatever I could write. I just write the guitar part and the vocal, and the rest is magic.
And so there's no genius. Stevie B is not the genius necessarily behind that band. It's the collaboration. It's the collective genius of all of them.
Exactly.
And so this is a big point. If you want to stand out, and you find that you are not hitting well, guess what? Stevie and I are not hitting the things in some of these things. We have to have collaboration to make us look. That was my whole Nashville producing style. I would bring people to town, and I would walk them in the studio with great players sitting there. I'm like, okay, show them your song. And then they would sound great after the players played, and I looked like a genius. And I wasn't even the person really playing a note. So sometimes just having the right people that you're collaborating with can make you look like you are super smart.
You really know what's going on. Totally.
That's the absolute secret of my success as a producer, for sure. And then your next point here is to stay on top of trends.
Yeah, so this is like, so important.
You are really good at this.
Yeah, I listen, man. I listen to what's on the top 40. Like I'm looking at what are the 10 most popular tracks on Spotify, usually like once a month or so. In terms of my writing, constant referencing. I'm always referencing, listening, just observing what is working and what people are into. And then, beyond that, like greater trends within music licensing, like we've chatted a lot in the last couple of months about how vocals are kind of working their way into a lot of stuff now with licensing. And I think that, just staying on top of that stuff is really, really, really important. It kind of gives you like a guideline to work with, and like honestly, sometimes I think that like sometimes people send me like feedback. Often these people send me tracks for my feedback. It's part of the academy, right? So and a lot of times folks are tackling like a genre for their first time, which is amazing. I love it. But sometimes when I listen to it, I could kind of sense that it was their own idea of what they thought the genre might sound like, and not necessarily like there might have not been enough referencing going on because like the sample selection was really off, or there were certain things that just didn't represent the genre very well. And I think like I was like, okay, well, I think that's what you imagined it sounded like, but like how much referencing did you actually do? How much time did you spend like going and listening to playlists in this of this genre in Spotify, for example? So I think that doing a lot of critical listening is really important to kind of develop a sense of like how to execute things properly, when especially if you're kind of like diving into unknown territory.
Or especially if you're not collaborating, if you don't have collaborators and it's all on your shoulders to program it all.
Yes.
Play, program, sing, everything, you're on your own. you have to do more of what Steve does or what Alex B is doing right now, and that is really listening to what the trends are and doing that, because apparently bass solo is the thing. No, I'm just kidding.
Or you make the trends, right?
Or you make the trends. But Steve, the reason now I've told this many times on this podcast, I think the reason that Steve does so much better than I do on Motion Array is because he listens more to what Motion Array is doing. Now, I'll tell you the truth. Lately, as I've been developing new stuff, I will go and listen to, the staff picks and different things like that of what's happening on Motion Array. My problem is I end up still making my own version of that versus that version. Because I go back to because we just told you, be original. And so this kind of flies in the face of be original, and that is do what they're doing with the trends. And so I tend to start with the trend, and then I just be original inside the trend. And that may not be as whatever this particular library or that library is looking for as Steve does, just because of his particular original leaning. So it little flies in the face of be original.
There's some
someone else
conflicting. Yeah, there's some juxtapositioning here in our in what we're talking about, I suppose. Ultimately, you can't make everyone happy. I mean, you can be super original on your own terms, and it might not be suitable for wherever you're pitching the music to, but someone else might love it, and it's one of those things. I think I'm very specific in terms of my research for what works well on Artlist and Motion Array, because these are two platforms that I can make money from. So it's my job to really stay on top of the trends and understand exactly what it is that they're looking for. And within those guidelines, I try to inject a little bit of my own my own originality in there, and but I keep it within there's a line. I guess there's a line, an imaginary line, where if I cross it, maybe it becomes a bit too much. So it's like a balancing act. The whole thing is really just kind of a constant balancing act.
Speaking of balancing and trying to do all this kind of stuff, I think one of the secrets that the people who I see succeed as music makers and income with music makers is they work harder than the other people. And I know this is not meant to be a slap in the face to any of you who are listening or watching, but the truth is the people who work harder at anything succeed more at that thing than the other people. Now you can also say, well, I believe in working smarter than working harder. Well, good for you. I hope that works out for you, but I've only seen harder and smarter obviously would help, and we're giving you things to be smarter with on this list. But go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that I think that kind of something that's sad but true is that if you're a great marketer with a subpar product, you're going to do better than like a lousy marketer with an amazing product.
Absolutely, yeah, sure. And I just know that again, I talk about this a lot on my channel, is the people who. And I tell my students this, the people who succeed in music are the people who keep doing it, and the people who work harder at it than others. And I've seen people who are completely non-talented turn into talented people because they worked hard. And that seems like that's not the way it works. You just are talented or you're not. Nope. Guess what? You can become more talented by repetition, by continual work. And a lot of people I know are listening to this podcast say, "Oh, dude, you don't know how hard I've been slaving away at this, and nothing is happening." Well, maybe that's the case, but in that case, there's some of the other things we've been talking about in here you need to pay more attention to. But I'm telling you that likely we're all not putting in as much time as we should be on the things that we say we want to have success with.
Oh, man. Absolutely.
We can go on and on about that.
We just go on and on about that, man. But it's just like, relentless work ethic and just sticking to it, man. It will really get you far. It's not just music, in anything in life. If you just stick to it, and if you commit yourself to learning and improving, sky's the limit, man. You can achieve anything.
Yeah. And then I also have on here, be prolific. I think This is something I'm big on is putting a lot of material out, and I think it's easy to be very artistic and go, I'm only going to put out, just this one tune right now for this year. One of my least favorite things, I don't know how you feel about this, but one of my least favorite things is when I'm on Spotify, I discover a new artist and I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I love their sound. And I go to their Spotify and they've got 2 songs.
Yeah.
And they made those 2 years ago.
Right.
And I'm thinking, where are you? Why aren't you making more music? I'm a buyer. I'm going to listen to your stuff and give you money for putting that out.
Yeah, well, it's hopefully they're not struggling with like writer's block and stuff, because I mean those things are real. That happens,
Maybe.
And like people get in a rut. Totally get that. I mean, I think.
Or they go off and do something else or form another brand or music brand, and I don't know about. It's possible, I guess, but.
Yeah, true.
A lot of bands that I see and I love, I know they're out there gigging. Why aren't they making more material and putting it out? I don't understand.
Yeah, well, it's tough, man. These days it's tough. I'm not trying to make excuses, but like it's I even have really struggled to come up with new material for my band, because it's like as you get older, you just the responsibilities pile on, and we all have like careers to manage, and it's tough to get like, I mean, I don't know, I'm just speaking from my own personal experience, but like I got 7 people in the band, including myself, and it's really hard to get us all together.
Well then, Steve,
I gotta work harder, man.
Harder.
Okay, Dad.
Wow. Okay. So I guess the next piece of this that I wanted to put down here is, I think this is something I keep coming back to a lot, and especially for those people who are Artlist, wanting to be in things like Artlist, or wanting to be in things like Spotify, and yet they're continuing to think of themselves as a producer or a composer and not a music artist. And I think, again, if you want to be seen, you want to be heard, you want to be found, you have to be on these places where artists are being found, even if you don't consider yourself to be an artist like that would go on stage and stuff. And that's fine. You don't have to go on stage.
Totally.
But you have to think of yourself as being an artist and having some kind of artistry that people can find if you want to stand out and be found.
I think you just got to kind of put yourself in the shoes of like what an artist would be doing. How would they be thinking about and approaching this stuff? You're right. I think in the sense that a lot of like the producers that we speak with and like have, especially in the sort of like the sync licensing world, there's sort of like probably an allergic reaction to thinking yourself or like the whole artist thing doesn't really make any sense, because I think it's not everybody's comfortable with putting themselves out there. And I think probably the one reason for that is because you have to have kind of like a visual public profile of yourself. And
I get it. But our premise was how to stand out and get noticed. And if you want to stand out and get noticed, you've got to be seen. You've got to get out there and be prolific and put stuff out. And I think maybe artist is not the right word. Maybe music brand is a better word, or,
it's part of
or something like that.
Yeah, it's part of like tying your brand together, like having some kind of it's just like, when I got accepted to Artlist, I was tasked with having to get some photos taken. And I was just like, oh yeah, like I've done this with my band before. I know how it works, but it felt a lot more comfortable when I had like my buddies standing next to me. Now I got to do it alone. Oh man. Yeah. and I get it. It felt weird. But I just had my wife take a few pictures of me in the forest, and then that's what I sent them, and it was all good. It was fine. And I think it was a little weird, just like having pictures of myself taken.
Scampering through the forest. I can see it now.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So that's, I don't know. It's something to, I think you got to think like an artist, and you got to be comfortable with embracing that sort of mindset, because I think, not everyone is interested in being on Artlist necessarily, but I think that having that kind of public profile and putting yourself out there that way is ultimately going to have a lot of value for you in the long run. Even when it comes to licensing and aside from Artlist, you know what I mean? So,
yeah. And the last one I'll put on here kind of goes back to collaboration. And I kind of talked about this when I was talking about it, and how amazing things can be when you start to. It's very easy for us to not venture out into the world and work with others. And I know this goes to collaboration, but this is a little bit different because this doesn't just mean great players or great engineers that you work with, but it could be great photographers. You were just talking about photography. It could be great artists or web developers who help you do things. You can do, the guy I was just talking to in my mastermind, he is collaborating with his next door neighbor who was one time a mastering engineer.
Yeah, right.
And yet he needs help doing something that David can do. He can do some programming stuff for him, and they can trade off services. And so you might be able to trade off services. But this has been a big key for me to stand out and be noticed, and that is to use other people who are great. I am hoping that Stevie B makes my track that I want to send to Motion Array work well, because I know Stevie has a style that works there. And so I'm purposely trying to get some of that mojo into there. Just like if I use my Nashville guys or a singer who's well known or is great at singing country music and I have a country song, I need a great country singer in there. So it just makes you look better. And again, like I said, it does go back to collaboration. And I think don't be afraid to work with others. And you might say, but I'm trying to stand out. I'm not trying to stand out and get them noticed, but it helps you. We help each other, and it's a way that you can stand out and be noticed just by sounding and looking great by working with the best.
That's how you do it, man. That's how you do it. Yeah.
Because I did that when I was going to start a video channel, and I tried to not put my face on it. And this guy, Stevie B, said, dude, you got to put your face on it. And I'm like, fine, then you got to put your face on a podcast with me, because I don't want to do it by myself.
So here we are. Trade off.
And I seem like I am frozen.
You are frozen. Your end? Yeah, you're frozen, but I can still hear you. I think this is still going to work. You're locked in position here.
Well, so the Eric puppet.
Oh, there you go.
There I am. I'm back.
Okay.
Don't know what happened. Well, I think that's a signal that we should be done.
Okay.
If our video's not working, but I hope this has been helpful for you to just kind of figure out. These are a bunch of things. And you can go back through and look at all these things, and hopefully one of them or two of them may help you figure out how to stand out a little bit more and get noticed if it's something you feel like you're having trouble with. So I hope it's
absolutely.
helped.
Yeah, good chat.
Excellent. All right, folks, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys. Take it easy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.